Welcome to Speaking Holistically, the podcast that explores the power of alternative medicine, natural healing, and homeopathic solutions to help you achieve true wellness. Each week, Dr. Jen and Amy G dive into the world of holistic health, discussing researched, time-tested remedies with expert insights from Dr. Jen, as well as real-life stories from patients to empower you to take charge of your health. So if you're ready to embrace a more natural path to wellness, let's start speaking holistically, because true healing begins from within. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Holistically. I'm your co-host, Amy G. I'm here with the amazing, my co-host, Dr. Jen. And we have a special guest today, Scott, who is a patient of Jen's, and he has quite a story to tell. And I have requested to have no information ahead of time so I can hear this story in real time as you guys are hearing it. And you'll get to see all of my animated reactions, which I can't help. So, Scott, first of all, thank you so much for being here today and being willing to talk to us and tell us your story.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I think it's one of the greatest opportunities to give back to people on their journey.
So
I think that story is going to help us too, or help other people out there that are not given all of the options. And actually, I've said this before, if you're not given any options, you don't have any. Like, if you don't know what there is out there on the table, you make an educated decision. So I think that's the biggest thing, and the biggest takeaway from this is not just taking someone's professional opinion and just running with it. So, and that's through Scott's, own fault of his own, especially how many years ago this all occurred was pre-internet, or right? It was about there.
Well, it was 23 years ago, 2002.
Oh my God, wow.
Yeah. So there wasn't the internet to be able to do the research like there is now. And even now people have the internet, and, some of these medical doctors will be like, oh, did you, Dr. Google it and stuff? And I'm like, well, absolutely. Like, you need to be your own advocate. So don't believe me, but don't believe anyone else either. So, yeah.
And I think the thing that I'll add to that is when you live in the two different worlds, Eastern and Western medicine, there is an understanding from the Western world that you fit within a box. And there's an understanding in the Eastern medicine world that you focus on the individual. And I think one of the big things that Dr. Jen has taught me is the fact that it is about yourself. It is about your journey, and there are no diagnoses that go along with it. There are symptoms that you have to understand that relate to yourself, and there's no two Scotts, which is a good thing. That
I can attest to that.
but I think you also have to understand that you have to be willing to open your mind to understand what it means to be you, and what it means to have the understanding, and to Dr. Jen's point of understanding what information makes the best decision for yourself.
Yeah.
So why don't we go kind of back a little bit, Scott, and tell us kind of your symptomatology, when things started?
Yeah, and I there's many facets to it, but the short version, the Cliff Notes version is, I was about 30 years old, and when I didn't have any energy. I just kept coming home, and I would have to, take a nap to be functional in the evening hours. And wow. There was many symptoms as I figured out, or went through the diagnosis. But what happened was no energy, a lot of digestive issues, a lot of neurological issues. And when I went to the regular family physician, they were like, okay, you shouldn't be 30 and not have any energy. Led me to GI. GI really ended up kind of saying that there was precancerous, or what they termed it as was familial adenomatosis polyposis, which basically it's hereditary, it's familial. Polyposis is the precancerous part of polyps in the colon. And so, not to Jen's point of not knowing what I didn't know, I went down this path with with them, and it led to me getting my colon removed in 2002.
Wait, let me just back that up for the listeners that didn't hear that.
What?
Not a section of the colon, the entire large intestine being
Yes,
removed from the small intestine all the way to the anus.
yes,
Oh
and
my
actually,
God.
they actually took the whole lining of the rectum out as well. And what that led to kind of further expand on that is basically they took the last 3 to 4 loops or sections of my small intestine and created what's called a J pouch. And the J pouch is basically they reworked it and created a large intestines. My body now void of large intestines has no real way absorbing water, which is one of the primary functions of your large intestines. And so that J pouch became, in essence, my large intestines, as I mentioned, but also where they stored the stool. And then from there, it has the added capacity of trying to absorb as much water from your food and your nutrients that you put in your body.
Wow.
So that led me to the 3 surgeries, removal, and then there was a intermediate surgery where my scar tissue and stuff had built up, and then the last surgery where they reconnected. I had an ostomy bag for 3 months, so I've been through the gamut, and really from there, the reconnection was the hardest part because there was a lot of scar tissue, and just in terms of what it means to have your body reconstructed, it's hard. And I was in the hospital for 28 days.
You were in
20
ICU for though how long?
ICU, probably a week, but then I just basically couldn't go to the bathroom. They were feeding me. I was down. I went from 150 pounds to 120 pounds.
Oh my God.
And then from there, Jen and I have had this conversation. I was blessed because, number one, my grandmother was connected to a gentleman up above and came and prayed over me, and that's when I was able to get past the blockage and go to the bathroom and ultimately get out of the hospital. But I think too, it kind of opened my eyes to the journey that I went on past that, and that was, okay, now I've got to deal with this body that is compromised and make the best of it. And to Jen's point of understanding what is on the internet, my life was over basically based on the internet. But that wasn't where my brain was. And, I didn't obviously meet Jen until years later, but I went down an alternative health path because I couldn't understand why people were put in a box and put on so many medications to mask stuff. And I think that's one of the firm beliefs that I have in the journey that I've gone the last 5 years with Jen, but even before that, I had done some holistic stuff, is that when you look at it and understand what your body needs, when you mask it, you create the other problems that go along with whatever particular drug that you put in your body or people put in their body. But I think more so, you have to be strong to understand what it takes to be in your body and ultimately how your body functions and what your body needs. One thing, side note on, Dr. Jen, is one of the first things that I told her is I do not like chiropractors. Straight up. I had bad experiences. And she's like, well, get on the table. I'm going to adjust you anyway. So, and I did. And she's the other part to the first visit, other than telling me that her main goal is for, and it is, and I'd say this in all lightness, is for her to give you the tools to keep yourself better. And that's why she says, hey, I am going to give you those tools so that you can get better, so that you can understand how to take care of yourself. And I think that's very important to state, is that you have to be vested in this journey, irregardless of whether it's Eastern or Western medicine. You have to understand what it means to be yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to understand what people have the best interest in you. But I think the other part to my first visit was the fact that she stated 3 times, as I recall them very vividly, that this was the first time that she did this with a patient on the first visit. So she adjusted the hiatal hernia, and if you've ever had that,
Oh
it's not
God,
the
it's
most
painful.
pleasant adjustment.
Oh, so
Hey, you don't
painful.
need to be telling everybody my secrets.
So,
Oh man, it
but
hurts.
it was amazing because when you walk out of there, you start to understand how you can feel, and believe me, it's a journey. So I don't know that when you look at how you feel and look at how you go about what you do each day matters. And I don't know that people open their eyes to that fact that you can do something very positive with your body. You can get people that are very vested in you, and you can understand how they can help you.
So, Scott, let's back up real quick. So, you did not actually have any cancer. I just want to be really clear about that.
I
You
did
had
not.
polyps that they diagnosed familial. So, potentially, do you know of anyone in your family that has had colon cancer or any kind of intestinal GI cancer at all?
Nope. And we went as far back as my grandmother, who I mentioned earlier, and she had, I think, two polyps, and my dad had two polyps, and there was nothing that was correlated with me.
So,
And
how did they convince you to have your entire and large intestines removed? Was there much talking, or did you just go along with it and agree with it?
the latter,
What now?
the latter. You, the way that you're brought up, the way that I was brought up.
Yeah, I was like, not me, not
Yeah,
me.
yeah. The way that I was brought up is that that's gospel, and you take it for that word, and that was what you were supposed to do, and you didn't question. Now, rewind 23 years, and I have the information that I have today, totally different situation. But
Well, and I mean, and I'm not blaming you for any choices you make. Like, we all are where we are when we make our choices. We have the information that we have, and we make those choices upon the information that's in front of us. So, you not having enough information or having somebody question that a little bit, you just went along with it, which, like I said, may or may not have been the right decision for you at the time or in, the future you. But, knowing now what you didn't know back then, would you do it again?
absolutely not. I mean, I think when you look at the human being and the human body and understand that there is a tried and true practice of understanding from physicians like yourself that you have a body to maintain, and what you do to it and how you treat it and how you get it to respond is individual. It's not, you can't put a blanket on the human body and say that this drug will do it for everybody that's in the room. And I think when I look back at it, my understanding today and having the information then would have led me to ask the questions of a person like yourself to say, how do we navigate this? How do we and truly understand the source? And I think that's what you and I've done over the last 5 years is understand that the source of those polyps originated not with the diagnosis in 2002. It really was a product of how where my father was in life. He just came back from Vietnam. He had been exposed to Agent Orange. I was conceived less than 3 months after he returned from Vietnam. And the research that you and I have both done led to the fact that the majority of the offspring that were conceived, 3 to 6, 9 months after the
The
troops
military
came back,
personnel, yeah.
came back, it definitely had effect. In going with my father through the VA, he has also confirmed that the two major things that happened to the offspring with the effect of the chemicals from that war was neurological and digestive. And I think that had a true impact on my life and my journey.
Which to add, and whatever I share here is because you're allowing me to, obviously, but
100%.
digestive and neurological are at the top of the list for sure of the symptomatology that you deal with. So, you being so sensitive to things too, he's hyper sensitive. So if we're seeing a medical doctor as his primary care physician, he would be labeled for sure a hypochondriac because he has so many tiny little things that will happen and it turns into something huge, migraines for 3 days or whatever it is. And part of it too is he overworks. I mean, we've had this conversation. He used to spend 3 weeks in bed a month and barely be able to function. And now he's feeling so good that he is shifted off in the other direction. I literally gave him a jar with how many marbles, Scott?
56.
No,
No,
I did not. How many marbles?
30.
Okay. So that is his visual because Scott is slow. So
Very.
that is his visual with how many hours a week he can work without him pushing himself and ending up hospitalized again or ending up with a 3-day migraine or ending up with whatever his symptomatology is going to be.
Yeah.
Now he regularly zooms right past there because he's feeling so good. So, and because, well, it's just another hour or two, it's just another 5 more hours, just another 6 more hours, just another drive, 4 hours round trip to this meeting. And he gets a lot done, but at the end of the day, it's to his detriment. He got
The one thing I'll add to that is Jen's 100% right in that regard. I push myself way too hard. And I think the difference that understanding who you are medically and going down this journey is your mind gets strong. Your mind has the capability to figure out, okay, I can do this. Where it falls apart is your body doesn't have the capacity or the physical capabilities to manage that. And I think that's the message that I've taken away, and I've gotten better. Am I at 30? No, but my goal is 20 now. My goal is to get to where this business can survive itself and I can honor my body.
But it's not just, there's limitations to all matter. So like your body can only handle 30 hours of work a week. And so what he does is he tends to push back there a little bit, the next week, a little bit more, the next week, a little bit more. And then, what happened 6 to 8 months ago, you ended up hospitalized. He hadn't been in the hospital since I'd been taking care of him. Not that it was me, it was him managing his health. So, that's the biggest thing. I don't want patients dependent upon me, which is the exact opposite of our medical model is dependency. I mean, you want to get blood labs done, you have to go through your medical doctor. I'm like, that's your blood. You should be able to walk into anywhere that you want and go get that done and request whatever tests you want without having to go through a gatekeeper. So, I try to give as much, and that's a lot of what's going on with this podcast as well, is just making sure that patients have and people have all the information that they need so that they can better take care of themselves and go, you know what, I'm going to go down this path and try this before I do this or whatever. So giving them more options. But the biggest thing is Scott taking out one of those, I've worked 4 hours, plunk, 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 and then he's looking at the rest of like, how am I going to manage this? And so for a lot of people out there, that's really what they need to do. I mean, I joke about this. I'm maybe a little off color sometimes, but, I joke. It's like things are like a thong bikini. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, just because you can get in it, just because it comes in your size doesn't mean you should go out and wear it, So just because you can do 40, 50 or 60 hours a week of work doesn't mean, you should. So because you're going to pay for it later, and so that's part of it is just trying to reel Scott in sometimes and like, dude, you cannot do this, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, and adding to that, my background is visual. I'm very in a creative environment and visual. So what Jen expressed in the visualization of the marbles is very important. I think the other part to it, though, is what you can do with your body and with the understanding of how you live. And to Jen's point, I think the biggest thing is you get the tools not to be dependent. Yes, there are things that happen in my life that I can't control, but I can also say that it's not that I have, the secret bat phone straight to Jen every 2 seconds that something happens. It ultimately, she gave me the tools. And if you're willing to learn and listen and to research what she is saying, you can give yourself those opportunities.
Also, so chiropractic was part of your recovery from all of these things that had happened, 20 plus years ago. I know you do massage. I know you do cranial sacral therapy, acupuncture, supplements, obviously, homeopathics.
I think those are the big things. Those things complement the chiropractic. And I think one of the things that should be expressed about chiropractic care in Lakeway Wellness in general with Jen and the amazing staff that she has there is that there are three things that she has really impressed upon me, and I'm sure every other patient, is that you have three components, and those are structural, where you need to be adjusted and you have a rib out, and you can take care of that in many ways. Tongue in cheek there for you, Jen. And then the second thing is emotional. I don't think that people understand the emotional connection to what you carry in life and how it affects the different organs in your life.
I couldn't agree more.
So I think that's one thing that, people are just like, well, I don't feel good because of this. And there's been many cases where in the beginning where I was like, what in the world just happened to me? And I've seen it happen to Daria, who is my wife, and you just pick up other people's energies, and people will say, well, you can't do that. And yeah, you can. And it's how you manage it. And I think the third thing is that your food, what do you put in you, and how that has a dramatic effect on how you feel, how you act, the emotions that you carry. And quite honestly, I think it does fall all the way back to the structural component. So I think if you're going to a chiropractor just to get adjusted, okay, that's great. That's a great step. But I think there's also other components that you have to consider in making yourself better. And I really think it starts with food.
So there's actually a meme that I saw, and it said going to the chiropractor for back pain is kind of like robbing a bank and stealing their pens. It was like, yeah, you kind of missed the point. So chiropractic really does get the nervous system functioning. The nervous system controls everything, your blood pressure, even, how your joints are moving, all of that kind of stuff. And there's over 200 different chiropractic techniques. So not everybody's obviously going to be the same. And none of us are the same to begin with. I mean, I don't adjust Scott the same way on every single visit. We have 2 other chiropractors in our office, and there's just different techniques. If I have a patient, I think this isn't what they need. They don't need me. They need this person, and that's exactly what it is. We don't have any ego issues. And that's why, like, when he's like, oh, Dr. Jen, I'm like, my ego doesn't necessitate that. It's fine. Like, we're all here to help out. But the one thing too with Scott, with what you said, is dealing with health. I look at the body as a triangle, like an equilateral triangle. So you've got on one side, you've got the emotional aspect, you've got the nutritional aspect, and then you have the structural aspect. And you need all of that to come together so that it doesn't fall apart, so that you have that balance. So dealing with some of the stuff that came up with Scott through his childhood, parental relationships, personal relationships, relationships with siblings, and that kind of type issues that come up. Now, we're not like, oh, yes, you're a victim. And, we all have to go, okay, yeah, this is what happened. This is what's going on. And this could be part of where I stuffed that emotion because I couldn't deal with it, or I didn't have the tools to handle it. So handling that, but also the nutritional aspect of it, getting the right nutrients in. And supplements are there to supplement what you're not getting out of your diet. So generally, you don't need a million supplements if you're eating whole foods and doing everything that you're supposed to be doing as far as nutrition goes. Now, genetically, that also plays a role for sure, because different genetics require different types of B vitamins, that being said. The other thing with Scott's issue, the bulk of water absorption occurs in the large intestine. He doesn't have a large intestine. I don't care what you do about making the small intestine into the large intestine, it's still not going to function that way. So his skin is super dry, like flaky dry, and it's horrible for him. He deals with it with laughter and joking, but it's a really, really tough thing for him to deal with. And when people don't know that that's what you're going through, it's super awful for him. He's itchy, he's dry, and as many supplements as we can give him, as much food as he's eating, as much water as he's drinking, that large intestine just isn't there. So the one thing that he does do is he goes on vacation, not for long enough. I'm always chastising him. I'm like, what is wrong with you? So, he went down to the islands for 72 hours, and I'm like, 72 hours, seriously? Like, you need longer than that. If you're going to make that effort of the stress of flying down there and doing all this stuff, you need to spend more time there. If he spends over a week there, a week to 2 weeks there, he comes back and his skin is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So sometimes where you are and where you need to be is not the same place. And sometimes making that leap or making that decision is a little bit scary. But at the end of the day, some of these decisions are hard. And at some point, he'll get all the puzzle pieces put together.
Yeah, Jen said that we could edit this because I do need to make one huge clarification. It was 96 hours, not 72. So we just have to be clear. But the second part to that is very true. And it goes back to the individual person doing the best and taking the advice that people give you, but also recognizing the fact that if you want to make yourself better, then you have to invest in yourself. And you can have all of the Dr. Jens in the world. If you don't take that to heart and do it for yourself, there's nothing that she can do for you.
That's
and that's the road that I chose. If you truly invest in your body and you truly listen to what it needs and the advice that people like Dr. Jen can give you, you can live a very happy life. We joke because laughter is a part of life that makes it better.
Well, and that's part of that equilateral side with the emotional, spiritual, like health. Emotionally, if you can laugh, if you can enjoy life, if you can find those things that you like to do, that's going to make you feel better, period. So, all of that, you can't fractionate. Like in Western medicine, it tends to be this way, and I'm not blaming them. There's nothing against them. They're great at emergency situations, for sure, for sure, for sure. You're in an accident, your arm's ripped off. Don't come to my office. You know what I mean? Like, there's drugs for that. There's short-term things that they need to do. And hopefully you don't have to live on any pharmaceuticals after that point. There's other things that you may be able to figure out. If you do, you do. But at the end of the day, trying to figure out ways to manage your life in a different way. Whether you're sitting home all day and 5, 6, 7 days in from not leaving the house, you're depressed. That's a lifestyle issue. That's not necessarily a neurotransmitter biochemical issue. Potentially it will turn into that. So all of this stuff, our mental health, our emotional health, and that's what we're talking about here. And we've gone over some of the emotional things of having a clean house or an organized house and how that impacts us and how we feel when things are clean and organized, or how our bodies feel. Like, we're happier when we feel better, right? I mean, all of that stuff does play a role into it. So it's not like you can just take one thing out from here, one thing out from here. We have a knee issue in Western medicine, and you go to the orthopedic that specializes in knees, but you've got joints above and below. And it's like, let's scope back a little bit and look at everything instead of just like his intestines. There was other things going on for sure. And different parts of the body absorb different emotions. So like, lungs, if you look at Chinese medicine,
or grief, right?
Yeah, it's grief, exactly. Small intestines is lost in, feelings of vulnerability. Large
and I've never been there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and even large intestines can also be like dealing with sibling rivalry as well. So, there's a lot more to our bodies, a lot more layers than we were ever told. And in school, I've always said, we learn algebra, we learn this, we learn history, we learn all this stuff, and we're never taught about how our body actually works. And that should have been the first and primary thing that we learn all the way through school, so that we can ask the right questions to help us get to the answers that we need.
Your body is made up of a whole body. And Western medicine has a tendency to focus on the knee and or elbow and or ear or whatever part that you go in there and say, this is where my pain is. And I think the biggest difference when you look at your body as a whole and you find the source, and it goes back to the equilateral triangle, there's opportunities on each of those sides that bring it back to the source.
So Scott, let me ask you something just real quick. How are your boundaries with other people? How were they 25, 30 years ago versus now? Have they changed?
No, not at all. I think, number one, the boundaries I think the answer to the question is I know who I am now. I became a people pleaser because that was bestowed on me. And quick example is my sister's 12 years younger than me. My dad traveled a lot. He was, just on the road. So I was her dad. And I became a people pleaser, and I had no boundaries because I was told to be the father of the family. And from there, I had to learn who I was, and a lot of those lessons, we talk about health in this particular conversation, but it is about those components that lead to your health and lead where you go on your journey in health. And that they didn't provide me any boundaries. And to what Dr. Jen said before, I had to do that one last thing. And, it didn't matter if it was 52 hours or 60 hours or 70 hours a week. It was becoming on me to be the first one in and the last one out. I know she's given me marbles and smacked me upside the head, but it's just, you have to understand who you are to set those boundaries and make sure that you have the capacity and the support to be consistent. And if there's one word I have not mastered is consistency, obviously by the stories that have been told.
I would say moderation, but we'll go with that.
Consistency has been my biggest challenge.
I really think that you are consistent. You take your supplements every day. You drink tons of water. You eat whole foods all the time.
You're way ahead of most people, Scott.
Oh, he's way, but if he wasn't, he would be dead. Like, that's what I'm saying. He couldn't, if he ate a bag of Doritos, it would literally probably send him into the hospital. So, but no, you're very consistent. If you didn't have that consistency in your life and the way you handle everything, your sleep patterns, everything that you do, you definitely would not be alive today.
No, and I agree with you. And I think it's that part of the equation is an eye opener because of the other parts of the health journey that we didn't even get into that have affected the way you look at life and in the way that you go about it. I do agree that I am consistent on making sure that I take care of myself. But when you look at it, you can do that to a fault in terms of you can get to, oh, this is cool. I feel good. I think the best way to put it is you're not present at all times.
Well, and you've really been working at mastering that too. I mean, you've up until this last holiday season where you felt an obligation to attend certain family members' festivities, and you're like, you know what, this doesn't work for me this year. And so you handled it with class. You didn't start a fight. You didn't make people feel terrible. You just decided what was best for you. And you went ahead and did that. And now, if some of the family members, got hurt in the process of it because you didn't continue the dance that you were taught when you were a child of we do this, you do this, we do this, you do this. And once you step out of line, people don't like, messing with that. So the fact that you handled it the way you did and you came out of it not sick, you came out of it feeling better. And it also took you to a different level, I think, with creating those boundaries and that strength and finding your self-worth.
And that's a good point. But I think the lesson there is one simple lesson. Now you have to take that as a foundational block and build upon it. And I think the next foundational block is the business and what, we run our own business. So having those same boundaries and being okay with the other word that I struggle with the most, which is guilt of not being able to do the things I want to do, but understanding that it's okay to delegate so that I can be the best person I can be within the parameters of what my body can handle.
Well, and that's part of the boundaries, right? So
Yep.
I was going to say, not only is it okay to say no, it's healthy to say no. I mean, we all need to be able to say no. And a lot of times it could directly impact our health, being able to say no or not on something. So,
yeah, and absolutely.
That's a good point. One thing I try to explain to patients too is some people can't say no. They just can't do it. It's not part of their vocabulary. They weren't taught that. They feel guilty, whatever it is. So the one thing that I tell them is to say, it's not going to work for me right now. So you don't have to say no. You can just say, it's not going to work for me right now. And if somebody goes, yes, it will, like, what? How would they know that, right? So, and that's not you saying no forever. It's just, it's not going to work for me right now. And generally, people who respect you and respect your boundaries will be like, okay. Now, you will quickly find out that people who don't respect you or respect your boundaries will push the envelope a little bit. And then you get to do some reevaluation on that relationship.
Yeah.
So that also will help your mental health, your physical health, because like I said, everything is connected for sure.
And it's not only the chiropractic and the equilateral triangle, the emotions and those kind of things. It's also the posse that she described before. It's Lauren with acupuncture, it's Heather with massage, it's Gina with the craniosacral, and just making sure that you're in tune with your body, because even if you do push it too far, which I do, you also have the tools to say, okay, how do I navigate this to the best of my ability and continue learning and continue the conversations that Dr. Jen and I have about what supplements do. I don't know that people ask those questions to understand what it does for your body and what it's doing to help you get better. They go in with a blind eye or have, just well, that's what she said to do. I'm not that way, as probably much to her chagrin sometimes.
No, patients who don't ask questions drive me insane, which is the exact opposite of most other doctors. Not most of them, but there's a lot that get belligerent if you ask any kind of questions, if you question them at all. And for me, I'm like, no, ask me the questions. I want you to understand why, how, when, where, because if you understand it, you can better take care of yourself, and then you're not dependent upon me.
Right.
For example, one of Scott's adult children is overseas right now, and he got sick. So Scott was able to walk him through, like, okay, do you have this supplement? Do you have access to this? What about this? So that he could make choices. So he had choices. Now, could he go and get an antibiotic or whatever he needed for whatever was going on? Sure, he sure could. But he also had other tools that he can choose to use as well. So because Scott has learned, because he has figured out like the pieces of the puzzle, and this works for this and that works for this, and really the supplements are there to give your body the nutrients so that your body can create the biochemicals that it needs to fight off whatever is going on or to help heal whatever is going on. It's not there to force the physiological reaction. It's there to give your body the nutrients so it can function optimally.
Yeah. And I'll give one more example to that. So Jen mentioned last year I ended up in the hospital, and then so that was a disaster. And then the second part to that equation is I ran my body into the ground in August. That was in February of 24. I got food poisoning, which is a disaster for me with my digestive
I can't imagine. Yeah.
And so I had an appointment with Dr. Fabi, and the next morning, and Daria wanted me to go straight to the hospital. I wanted to go to Lenore City, and I went to Lenore City. And through
to our office.
Yes,
and saw one of the other doctors that was in the office that day.
So they, between Dr. Fabi, Miss Jamie, and they had Jen on the phone, they took 3 hours, and they got me to the point where I could go home and I did not go to the hospital. And I think that's the truest testament. If you take the tools and you invest in your body and you trust these great people that have the wherewithal to help your body through things, you can stay away from anything that could potentially have a side effect or bring you down a whole nother path. And I will be forever grateful, and it just brings tears to my eyes, the love and compassion that Jen and the people that she surrounds herself have for the people and the human being and the individual. And it's an amazing thing. So, I think that's, if you want to answer the question about 5 years of my life has been transformed to see the beauty in people, and the people that you surround yourself matter.
What a beautiful answer. I love that.
I think the one thing that I haven't said is thank you.
Well, it's been my pleasure, because it's fun working with you, because you want to know the hows, the whys, the wheres, the whens, and then you can take that information and help yourself so that you're taking on that personal responsibility and not just blindly believing, like I said, me or anyone else. And you're also able to help your children and someday your grandchildren, and you can help your wife and you can help your friends. And so that information that you're taking and utilizing is like a dream come true for me. It's that absolute ripple effect of getting that information out there, and then people can take it and use it and help others with it.
I'm very proud of Jen for taking this step and putting the voice out there. And Amy, keep asking her the hard questions, because we'll catch her one time and we'll see what her reaction is.
I have been through 26 years of being in her care. I haven't been able to stump her yet. And man, have I tried. I've had some real weird stuff. She's
Well, we
You know,
can,
but the thing is I like, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you, you know what? I don't know. Let me go research it and figure it out for you, because I'm not going to sit there and blow smoke and tell you something when it's not necessarily true. So, I mean, I'm human. I can't possibly know everything, but it doesn't mean that I can't look for an answer for someone. So
yeah,
that's, I
and
mean,
I think that's a very true statement. Just a quick story on that is that, I have a lot of symptoms from the neurological part of what we kind of trace back to the Agent Orange. And just randomly, I get a text that says, okay, you need to look at your pons. I'm like, what the hell is pons? It's a French basketball player is all I know. She gave me the article. And I did my research, and, obviously she knew where she was going with this in terms of the neurological. It's because it's at the stem of your brain, and it's kind of your command center, so to speak. And Jen, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. And it gave me the insight onto, okay, this is kind of where everything's originating. And I feel it in different parts of my body in terms of the neurological effects. But, going back to a part of the previous conversation is, you got to look for the source. And I think when you look at what Jen and her team does, is they do look for the source. They just don't look, okay, your hand's shaking and you can't write. They look for, okay, where's that originating? And I think that's looking at and putting a plug for the podcast here, looking at it holistically.
Yeah. No, absolutely. She's a master at peeling the onion of the human body. She really is. And I say she's amazing when I introduce her, at the beginning of every episode. I wish I had a stronger word than that. She just is like she's like a wizard or something. I don't know.
I think
But
well, I mean,
she
I
the word I
really, I
would
think,
use the
go
word
ahead.
I would use is intuitive. I mean, I think
yes.
when you look at how she approaches the body, I mean, no two people are the same.
Right.
So the intuition goes along with it, and there's a discernment, or there's a gut feel that goes along with it. That and Jen and I've talked about this too. Is you either have it or you don't. And when you have it, it's just a matter, can you understand how to use it? And I think she has found a vehicle in which her intuition and just her knowledge, she's able to communicate it in a way that people understand and can relate, and then therefore have the capacity to take it on themselves. There are more things that are communicated through body language, through adjustment, through the cranial sacral, through the actions, more than the words. And I don't think that that gets enough credit in terms of what you see and how she carries herself. Because when you go in and people are trusting you in this realm, you have to be confident, but you can't come across as cocky.
Yes.
And so there's a balance and understanding of how the message is communicated. And that goes back to the intuition, that goes back to reading people and understanding who you're dealing with, so that you can provide that message.
Well said. I love how you articulated that. Very well said. I can see your cheeks getting red. This is great. I love it.
Well, I mean, I really think
It's
it's just
about time that we
education.
got something on her, Amy. Come
No, I
on.
mean, I think it's just about education. I love learning and I love digging and I love finding. And, the diagnoses that were available 25 years ago are not the same diagnoses that we have now. We have so much more. I mean, I even remember years ago when I first got out of school, and, my parents are both chiropractors, and my dad said, hey, I got to ask you something. I've got these symptoms. I've got this burning down my leg like this. And I said, oh, that's myalgia paresthetica. And he goes, it's what? I said, it's what you got. He goes, what's that? I go, it's what you got. I go, look, I got patients. Go look it up. I got to go. And so I made him go look it up. And I got finished with my patients that day. And I walked back into his office and I said, did you look it up? And he said, yeah, it's exactly what I got. I go, I know. I don't just play a doctor on TV.
You didn't
He's
stay
like,
at a
Jen, when
Holiday
I
Inn
was,
Express
huh,
either, so.
what?
Or you didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express either. So.
There's that. He's like, when I was in school, that wasn't even a diagnosis. And I said, I know. As we go through life, there's more and more diagnoses that come up. Take headaches, and then it just, there's a ton of different types of headaches. And then you go into migraines, which is technically a type of headache. And, you start looking at how quickly those things can have new diagnoses. So just trying to keep up with what's out there is helpful. And I think that's part of what I do. And, in our general education as chiropractors, we take years of neurology, we take years of radiology, we take years of pathology classes, physiopathology classes, neuroanatomy, anatomy and physiology, even obstetrics and gynecology. There's so many classes that we end up taking and so much information, immunology, histopathology, stuff like that. Just, it's crazy amounts. So for me, I didn't learn it for the test. I learned it for life because I knew that information would come in handy someday. And there are times that I'm like, wait, I remember this, but I don't 100% remember. So I have to go look it up, but I know where to look for it. And I know what I'm looking for. And I know that there's something out there, and it's really, really helpful. And not to say that, oh, I'm just the most amazing thing, because anybody can get educated, really, let's be real. But the other thing is when patients come in and they have symptoms or they have a diagnosis that they got, that's something I've never heard of before. They'll say, have you heard of this? And I'm like, no, honestly. And I'll go look it up and I'm like, holy cow. And sometimes that new diagnosis that didn't even exist, it wasn't on the radar or anything, can help another patient. In fact, that just happened this last week where I kept something up on my screen and I knew I was seeing this next patient a few days later. And I said, hey, you know what? This kind of sounds like you. We might want to get this checked out and do some further imaging. I think we're all in it together. And honestly, patients probably teach me as much as I teach them, but listening to those patients, because they live in their body 24 hours a day. I'm not going to say, oh, no, it's not that. Like if Scott's having an issue, I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily understand it, but let's figure out where this is coming from.
Well, and I'll add one thing to that. It's a two-way street. If you look at it to your point about the knowledge, you can get as much knowledge as you ever want. I mean, you could read 100 million books. Where it changes is where you know to apply that knowledge.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest difference, and it goes back to the word intuition, because intuitively, you know that this applies somewhere. And I think that's the biggest thing in my life is that you've given me the tools. Now it's my intuition of how to manage my body with those tools and the communication that goes along with, hey, Dr. Jen, these are the things that are going on so that it can lead you in a path for your intuition to take you to the knowledge to come back.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Well, Scott, I personally can't thank you enough for just coming on and sharing your story. I think it was fascinating for me to listen to everything you went through. I mean, my God, so crazy. It takes an amount of vulnerability to be willing to share your story with the world, and I think it's incredibly powerful. And so, just thank you for doing that.
Well, you're welcome. And I think people should take the information and look at themselves and look at how they can become better, not only in health, but just as a part of this journey.
Yeah.
And I use journey a lot because there are different chapters of it. There's different things that go on. But the most important thing is to find people that, number one, you trust, and number two, that are there to be the foundational pieces of your life. And I think going back to my kids, just for a brief moment, they have the understanding of what I've gone through. They also have me in their ear, take care of your body, honor your body every day. And I think number three is they have someone like Dr. Jen and her team that will allow them to go through this journey with a lot more information.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. Thanks, Scott.
Well, thank you. And I won't give you too much of a hard time. So we'll save that one for later.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. This has been another episode of Speaking Holistically. Join our school community. I'll put the link down below. You can also follow us on Facebook, our Instagram page, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Till next time, bye-bye. That wraps up another episode of Speaking Holistically. Thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration to take charge of your health. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, be sure and join the Speaking Holistically school community by clicking the link in the show notes. There, you'll get access to daily podcast episodes, weekly live Q&As, educational content, and so much more. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep speaking holistically.